third release of the weekend, another film that did not develop much intrigue among the audience, but I was still interested in exploring what the Girish Malik co-produced, written and directed film Torbaaz starring Sanjay Dutt, Nargis Fakhri and Rahul in lead roles would offer. The film focuses on an ex-army doctor, Nasir Khan, played by Sanjay Dutt, who identifies the growing concern in Afghanistan of children being influenced to become suicide bombers for a greater purpose, and introduces the young souls of a refugee camp to partake in a cricket tournament. The landscape is of a war-torn country where children are used to the existence of guns and ammunition but are enamored by a leather ball. What follows is the director attempting to make us understand the sad history of Nasir and Afghanistan, the brainwashing of vulnerable minds executed by extremist groups, and the quest to change the recurring theme of children being the first targets of terrorism. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the film so that you guys can ultimately decide whether Torbaaz is worth your time on Netflix or not. The good. The performances. The most important point to identify in Torbaaz is that it is a well-intentioned film, and by that I mean that the performances of the cast are sincere and honest. Sadly, the execution of the storyline is extremely lackluster and sloppy, which makes the rather convincing performances not really penetrate into the minds and hearts of the masses. Sanjay Dutt does a praiseworthy job in conveying Nasir's internal struggle of dealing with a personal loss. His initial reluctance in engaging with the locals or even participating is communicated well. However, the storytelling treatment of flashes, abrupt montages, and incoherent editing actually does a huge disservice to his performance. Rahul, while brilliant in his role as the leader of the extremist group, much more believable than the accents executed in Khuda Hafiz, his character from an editing standpoint is not allowed to really sink his teeth into the film to develop fear among the audience. Nargis Fakhri is forgettable in her role while attempting broken Hindi lines, but the stars of the show undoubtedly are the kids in the film. They have an innocence and genuine energy that really stand out in the scenes where they are being convinced to train and participate in cricket. Gulab, Baz, and especially the little kid who plays Sadiq will melt your heart and even develop wonder within you of the confidence that the little boy possesses. The premise on paper. Being in the landscape of social media, I also realized that there is a massive hard-on with creators to really hate on films. Of course, negativity sells like wildfire in the digital space, but I always see a film wanting it to be good. And Torbaaz is a perfect example of a film that on paper had all the ingredients to be a memorable and inspiring tale. A tale of a country in ruins due to international intervention and local extremist forces being at loggerheads with each other for several decades. And Afghanistan cricket has everyone's attention on a global scale. What is better than influencing the children of a war-torn country to have aspirations of becoming global sports stars? I have to with great regret confess that the execution of the film really lets down a premise which on paper could have soared to exponential heights and actually become a film for the ages. The underwhelming aspects. The editing. I believe the biggest downfall of Torbaaz is its editing. The screenplay of the film that jumps back and forth from the characters' journey together and individually, in contrast to the carnage that ensues in the country, is so haphazard and half-baked that it actually takes away from the beautiful premise on paper. You get brief flashes of what the characters went through, and that small period of time is dedicated for you to develop a sense of empathy for the characters, which is simply not enough. The premise further explores the discriminations against the Hazaras, and casually a solution is brought about because the movie has to progress for the children to play the cricket match. There is a combination of real footage, stylized explosions and guerrilla camera work which are placed in an edit in such a sloppy fashion to try and correlate what Afghanistan is going through while the preparation of the match is taking place. There are several times the same footage is utilized to denote a different event. You will also find many continuity issues from one dialogue to the other. Sometimes characters in close proximity are talking to one another, but the camera only does solo shots, making you think that the actors are actually shooting the sequence separately. All the slow motion shots lack smoothness, and it's simply because the footage may have been shot on 24 frames per second originally, because of which the frame distance cannot be stretched even more, and what we get is a plethora of stuttery slow motion sequences. Bird's eye view. The film aims to condense information in every instance, be it the problems that the locals have with international intervention, the personal trauma that characters are going through, the individual stories of the children, the caste discrimination among the local population. Everything is provided 2 to 3 lines or a quick montage that completely takes away from people being invested in the product. Torbaaz is actually a good film that is confused on what it should really sink its teeth into. So in the process of trying to focus on multiple things, it tries everything everything but doesn't really excel in either of those things. The bird's eye view of the political, social, and personal journey of the world of Torbaaz makes you disappointed that a film with so much potential actually failed due to its technique of storytelling more than anything else. The inability to make you root for characters. The film also made me wonder about other sports films and why they resonated with the masses so much. As Torbaaz is a Hindi film, I'll first start with a Hindi film example like Chak De India. A story of a team that is grossly underestimated and coached by an individual that has his own personal battle. In order for the masses to develop empathy for the characters, you don't have to have a personal backstory for each person of the team, but you choose who to flesh out. The coach and his dark history of being questioned on his nationality and love for his country, the former captain whose ego comes in the way of a team sport, an individual who feels disrespected by her own partner, who is surprisingly an athlete himself, all this build up, leading to the final culmination of victory, made the audience feel as if it was a personal victory. With respect to the same genre, you look at an international film like Coach Carter. The personal journeys of characters like Timo Cruz having to deal drugs, Kenyan dealing with his girlfriend's pregnancy, all these personal journeys develop deep empathy for the characters. Sadly, for a sports film set in a war-torn country, the characters are barely fleshed out in Torbaaz, making you only think one thing after the movie. The kids were cute. The landscape of sadness that lingers on, noticing the state of a country that has lost its beauty, the dream of representing one's nation marred by conflict, and beautiful lines to counter extremist views like अगर ईमान पक्का है तो गुमराह क्यों हो गए, अगर वो डगमगा गए तो वो ईमान नहीं बहकावा है, really made me believe that this film had all the potential of being a really memorable film. If shot and edited differently, Torbaaz would have been a whole different story. It is a well-intentioned film that's executed extremely sloppily. And that was a video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about the movie. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.